It all started with an empty drawer. Not a sock drawer, not a junk drawer. It was the cash drawer. The one where I kept my emergency money, $500, tucked under a stack of old birthday cards. I looked at the empty space. It was a perfect, clean, wooden rectangle. I stared for a long time. It felt like my brain was trying to solve a very simple math problem and failing spectacularly. The money was there yesterday, and now it was not. That's when you start doing the mental inventory. You check your purse, you check your coat pockets, you check under the bed, just in case a very specific money-stealing wind blew through the apartment. Then, the other little things started to click into place. They were like annoying puzzle pieces you'd ignored for weeks. My ex-boyfriend Mark hadn't called me back in 2 days. This was unusual. He always called back. He was a champion texter and a gold medal caller. My roommate Chloe had been quiet. Too quiet. She was usually a whirlwind of noise and hairspray. Lately, she had been tiptoeing around our shared apartment. She'd been buying expensive coffee. I had noticed the fancy cups. I had even teased her about her new, expensive taste. I didn't connect the dots. You never do until you're standing in front of an empty drawer. The silence in the apartment suddenly felt heavy. It was a loud kind of silence, the kind that has secrets in it. I sat on my bed and thought about Mark. I replayed our last conversation. It was stilted and strange. He said he was busy with work, a classic excuse, an excuse so old it should be in a museum. But I believed him, or I wanted to believe him. It's amazing what you can convince yourself of when the alternative is too awful to consider. The alternative was that my life, as I knew it, was a complete and total lie. And who wants to think about that on a Tuesday? That's when the penny dropped. Or rather, the $500 dropped. Chloe had been complaining about being broke. She couldn't make rent last month. I had lent her $200. She had promised to pay me back. She had been so grateful. She had given me a big hug. Now I thought about that hug. It felt different in my memory. It felt like the hug a magician gives you while they steal your watch. Chloe had the expensive coffee. Mark wasn't calling. The money was gone. The equation was simple and the answer was terrible. My roommate and my boyfriend were a team, and I was the person they were playing against. If you're enjoying what you're watching, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Before the betrayal, Chloe and I were the perfect roommates. We were a cliché from a television show. We shared clothes. We watched bad reality TV on the couch. We ate takeout Chinese food straight from the cartons. We complained about our jobs and our mothers. She was the messy one. I was the neat one. It worked. Our apartment was a little haven of female friendship. It was a place where you could leave your makeup on the counter and no one would yell at you. It felt safe. It felt like we were in it together, navigating our 20s with a shared map. We met through a mutual friend. She needed a place to live. I needed help with the rent. It was a practical arrangement that blossomed into a real friendship. Or so I thought. We talked about everything. We talked about our dreams. She wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to be a writer. We talked about boys. I told her all about Mark, how we met, how he made me laugh, how he had this one crooked tooth that I found incredibly charming. She listened so intently. She gave me advice. She told me I was lucky. She said he sounded like a great guy. Mark started coming over more often. The three of us would hang out. We'd play board games. We'd watch movies. It felt like a little family. I thought it was nice. I thought, how wonderful that my boyfriend and my best friend get along so well. What a modern, healthy situation this is. I was proud of it. I would tell my other friends about our perfect little trio. They would nod and say how lucky I was. No one tells you that when things seem perfect, you should probably be a little suspicious. Perfection is often just a costume for a disaster. Looking back, there were signs. Of course there were signs. There are always signs. There was the way she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. There was the time I walked in on them talking in the kitchen, and they stopped abruptly. They looked like children who had been caught drawing on the walls. I asked what was so funny. Chloe just waved her hand and said, "Oh, nothing. Nothing is never nothing. Nothing is always something." But I was happy, I was in love, and when you're happy and in love, you are willfully blind. You walk around with a blindfold on and call it trust. The confrontation was not a dramatic movie-style showdown. I wish it were. It would make a much better story. Instead, it was quiet and pathetic. I waited for Chloe to come home from her job interview. I knew she wasn't at an interview. The expensive coffee cups were a dead giveaway. She walked in, humming. She stopped when she saw me sitting on the couch. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. I had placed the empty birthday cards on the coffee table. A silent accusation. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Surprise, confusion, guilt, fear, and finally a cold, hard defiance. "Where is it, Chloe?" I asked. My voice was flat. I had practiced yelling in the shower, but all my anger had evaporated. All that was left was a deep, hollow sadness. She tried to play dumb. "Where is what?" she asked, avoiding my eyes. It was a terrible performance. She was a bad liar. "The money from my drawer," I said. "And my boyfriend. I seem to have misplaced him as well. Have you seen him?" The sarcasm was bitter in my mouth. She finally looked at me. There were no tears. There was no apology. She just shrugged. A shrug. She destroyed my life and gave me a shrug. The rest of it came out in a torrent of ugly truths. Yes, they had been seeing each other for a month. Yes, he had been at our apartment when I was at work. Yes, she took the money. She needed it, she said. He had told her where I kept it. That was the part that broke me. It wasn't just that she stole from me. It was that he had helped her. He had pointed her to my secret stash. He had taken my trust and used it as a treasure map. The partnership of it all was what felt like a physical blow. They had conspired against me, in my own home. She packed her things that night. It was a strange, silent affair. She moved around the apartment that we had shared, the place where we had built a friendship, and she was now a stranger. I watched her take her posters off the wall. I watched her pack the mugs she had bought. I didn't help. I didn't speak. I just sat on the couch, a silent guardian of my own heartbreak. Mark texted me while she was packing. "We need to talk," it said. I typed back, "No, we don't." Then I blocked his number. I blocked her number. It was a small digital act of self-preservation. It was the first step in cleaning up the mess they had made. The weeks that followed were a blur of takeout pizza and bad television. The apartment felt enormous and empty. Every corner held a memory I now wanted to erase. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. The betrayal was a constant hum in the background of everything I did. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't even just about the boyfriend. It was the shattering of trust. It's a fragile thing, trust. It takes years to build and seconds to demolish. And once it's gone, the world looks different. It looks sharper and a little more dangerous. You start to second-guess everyone. I learned that healing is not a straight line. It's a messy, looping, frustrating process. Some days I was furious. I would compose long, angry text messages in my head that I would never send. Other days I was just incredibly sad. I mourned the loss of 2 relationships at once. I mourned the friend I thought I had, and I mourned the man I thought I loved. I also mourned the person I was before all of this happened. The trusting, open person. I wasn't sure if I would ever be her again. I felt foolish. I felt naive. I felt like I had a giant sign on my forehead that said, "Easy target." But slowly, very slowly, things started to change. I changed the locks on the apartment door. It was a small, practical act, but it felt monumental. It was me, taking back control. I started filling the apartment with my own things. I bought a new rug. I painted the living room a color she would have hated. I reclaimed the space as my own. I spent more time with my real friends, the ones who showed up with ice cream and let me cry without judgment. They reminded me that not everyone is a villain in disguise. They reminded me that good people exist. Eventually, I realized the lesson wasn't to never trust anyone again. That would be a lonely way to live. The lesson was to trust myself more, to listen to that little voice in my gut that tells me when something is wrong. The signs were there. I just chose to ignore them. The betrayal didn't break me. It scraped me up pretty badly, but it didn't break me. I am stronger now. I am wiser. And I never ever keep emergency cash in a drawer full of old birthday cards. Some lessons you only need to learn once. This story is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are products of my imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual events, locales, or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental.